Welcome, everybody, to the season premiere of the Harness Players podcast here on the In the Money Media Network after some time away, which really doesn't feel like much time away at all. I remember being in this exact spot recording a Century Mile Pick 4 preview at the end of last year. And then it's almost like I closed my eyes and I woke up in March. It's a real Slim Van Winkle that I'm dealing with here as we join for this first preliminary of the MGM Borgata Series at Yonkers Raceway. When this race hits the condition sheets and the entries hit the box, you know that the flowers are budding and the spring is blooming. Not just me here on this Harness Players podcast. It can't just be me as usual. I have my co-host, Mikee P. Although it's tough to say that you're my co-host on these shows, considering you are hosting pretty much every other show on this network. This is just another one of the hats that you wear. What the hats you have an Adios hat today? I was trying to see because you also do choose. You got so many different hats, literally.
Yeah, our friends at the Meadows will be loving this with the audio. So you know what? I need to talk to Peter, get some Yonkers merch so we can do these Borgata shows. That would be fantastic. So Peter, I know you're watching this, so maybe ship out a little Yonkers merch to your boys here for these Borgata shows. How about Borgata's back? And I will say, last year I was extremely excited with the Borgata. I thought the racing was fantastic. All the preliminary legs were, very, very competitive. They produced some big prices and just some excellent racing. And now we have nice full fields this year. Now we have some races that, there's 5 legs. You have 6 horses, 6 horses in these races. So yeah, that maybe not the best gambling, entities necessarily, but very competitive. So I think we can still get prices. I think we can still get some multi-leg wagers that pay money. So worth watching. I love these top horses getting after it here in April, heading into the finals that will be after the Derby again this year.
Mm-hmm. Well, and these somewhat slim divisions, I also just learned today a result of a specific rule in the state of New York where a trainer is only allowed so many entrants in a particular division. And the way that this series came up this year, a lot of eligibles for Travis Alexander, a lot of eligibles for Per Engblom, and a lot of them hit the box here in leg number 1. And so that kind of thinned some of these fields, which, as you said, makes the betting a little less exciting. But, we had short fields all through last season. And what was impressive was how frequently you could try and find a 20-30 to 1 shot who's out of the fray in the handicapping, and you could at least maybe squeak an okay exacta, an okay try. And as you know, and I know as well from betting, sometimes you just want to snatch a little one of those, and then it pads your bankroll enough where down the road, that's when you can catch your score.
Yeah, and we have dollar pick 3s, dollar pick 4s, so a little bit of a higher minimum there at Yonkers, and that typically produces carryovers. It produces pools that, if you're right, you can leverage some of these horses in these multi-leg wagers to give yourself a nice profit. So these are tickets that I do think that we can maybe look at and look at playing and be things that I would be interested in playing as a gambler. So I want these top horses going in against each other week in, week out. If you pay attention, you can see trips, you can see horses going in and out of form. So this is one continuous game here in a lot of ways for this series on Monday nights. So I love the Borgata. I think that this is something that I love. I'm really appreciate the fact that the SOA and that MGM has us covering it, because it forces me to pay attention to it every week and perhaps make a little bit of money.
And I also want to encourage people watching or listening, because you can watch and listen to a companion episode we have with this premiere. With thanks to the SOA and Yonkers Raceway, we were able to get access to some of the key players in the 2026 MGM Borgata Series. I had the privilege to talk with Jim Marone Jr., who we'll see later in this show, drives defending champion Mosdale Ben. I got to talk with Jason Bartlett, who's driving pretty much every chalk inside of this opening prelim. I didn't ask him his thoughts of driving 1 to 5 shots, but we had an okay conversation nonetheless. And then talk with trainer Doug DeLoyan, who sends 2 horses, including one. This is a nice segue, Mike, into the first race of this discussion. Race number 2. It's the first prelim, first leg, or first division, I should say, of this MGM Borgata Series. Doug DeLoyan Jr. specifically sends morning line favorite Soho Firestone from that inside draw, 6-5 on the morning line. And in that conversation, I even said to him, it's quite evident when you look at this horse's lines, how well he performed in that Grand Prix series in December, that this horse has ability that makes him belong against this group. But at the same time, Doug said an interesting thing. He said this is the best horse he's ever sent into the Borgata Series. So a lot of weight going in here as he faces an interesting invader. What do you make of this matchup between the two chalks? Celtic Spirit, or Celtic Spirit is probably the less criminal way to say it, son of Sweet Lou over at Diamond Creek Farms. Joe Bongiorno picking up this Christy Noble trainee. It seems like this 4 could be a dark horse against this 1 horse, and the morning line favorite making that debut.
Well, he has recency for sure, Celtic Spirits, and went quick at that over that Northfield track. 51-1 back on March 15th. That is very quick over Northfield. I know that they're producing fast times there, but this horse is in form for sure. Now, does he have the class to stack up with a Soho Firestone? We'll see, because last year Soho Firestone got very, very good at 6 years old, right? Made $244,000. Well, this one had only made $80,000 prior to that. He just really has come into his own and has to come off a layoff, though. Now, the qualifier was nice, 51-1, kicked home in 27. He looks like all systems are go. You got the rail. I would imagine that they would push off, but it's a long series, and you need points. You need everyone sort of working their way back in off the layoff. So if you're interested in horses that have some recency, I think Celtic Spirit would be maybe the one for you. And you got Joe Bongiorno. Wow, he likes to blast off. He's one of the best at getting horses away from the gate. So I don't think that Joe is gonna take back here. He's gonna blast off. That's where this horse is at its best. So they could heat up. Well, there's Sherlock sitting there in the 2-hole, and I know how much you like him. He's a closer. You had Jim Marone on. Did you guys mention Sherlock? Or did you discussing this horse? Because he's been driving. He's a closer, and he had some success in this series in the past.
Yes, Jim indicated to me that he felt Sherlock's probably more of like a fringe player inside of the series, which, I mean, let's be honest, that's what he was last year as well. He was a type that you wanted to try and get onto the exacta if you were lucky, since he was always these long odds, and he was able to do exactly that. Sometimes catching a helmet and having the race fall into place for him to get that piece, sometimes just saving ground. Jim was saying that he's probably more a type that he just want to get around the track, give the horse the best trip he can, finish as well as he can. All of the indicators of we're really racing for a check here. We understand that the waters are kind of deep, which I mean, I think it would be delusional to not think that, considering you see how well, as you mentioned, Soho Firestone was racing in those opens and even in the Grand Prix series. Doug also mentioned to me he has no worry about the horse coming off the layoff. He said, in fact, he's quite proud of how well he can get horses ready to win first start off the bench. And Soho Firestone specifically had the plug still in when coming that 27 and change final quarter. Sherlock, to me, though, isn't really the good exotic horse in this race. He's 10-1 on the morning line. That makes him around the 4th choice. I feel like the sneaky one to try and slip onto the ticket is for Ricky Bucci and Brent Holland there in post 5, I Captain. What do you make of this guy? I feel like if you throw out that race over the slop where it seemed like he really didn't get over the track well, this is a prime horse who's going to try and plug home for maybe a 3rd.
He likes to win. 10 wins last year. He's 19 times in the exacta. He's doing it the hard way, and he does get a setup here. I do believe that the 1 and the 4 are going to test each other early, and you could be ready all you want off the bench, but nothing can replicate the fact that getting into the race and getting into a speed duel. I'm not sure that if Soho Firestone is up for that, fantastic. He's going to have a huge series, but this is the time I do think that these opening legs where you want to take some shots, you want to try to get some prices. If you like closers, you could do worse than the 2 and the 5 here. So either one, I think, depending on race shape and setup, I do think have possibilities. Maybe not to win, but can maybe jump into that exacta. So they're ones that I do think that I would be interested in. The 2 and the 5, I agree. Both have interesting chances to maybe cash in the exotics.
I think my driest approach here would probably be a 4-1-5 cold trifecta, if I'm being honest, because Christy Noble, known to get a lot of speed out of horses, especially early speed. As you mentioned, pairing with Joe Bongiorno, that makes him a logical leader. I feel like Bartlett's going to be obliged to sit the pocket, and it could just be a merry-go-round in that sense, as we've seen many times. And maybe, just maybe, since Celtic Spirit's the second choice, you get him on top of the favorite with maybe the second longest shot on the board. If that's what the 5 goes off, that cold try, you would hope pays at least 10-1, 11-1, and you just put $2 on that. Move on, right?
You could do it if you're so inclined. I don't really play trifectas, but I know you like them.
Well, and sometimes if you're dealt horses that are odds that you don't really want to swallow and you want to just put up a little bit of capital, that's a better way to try and get a bit more money, especially since they're short fields. Sometimes they play a bit more logically. Let's go to an even shorter field. Race number 3, 5 horses in this second division of the Borgata. First time Lasix on morning line favorite Redwood Hanover. Bartlett was glowing about this guy in our conversation. He was really raving about that last qualifier, which, I mean, you can just read that line alone, coming home in 25 and change. Second time on Lasix there in that qualifier. First time Bartlett had the reins on this guy. And Mike, I mean, we're familiar with Redwood Hanover for many years ago. Three years ago, as a matter of fact, he was a player in the Meadowlands Pace, North America Cup, Little Brown Jug. Tricky one for Tony Beaton. Stayed with Tony Beaton until around September last year, and it seems like with Per Engblom, he's found himself again.
Yeah, and he almost won the Audios if it wouldn't have been for a bad trip that day. But he's sort of a hit and miss type for me, right? And last year he kind of was knocking around in Canada for a while, and then all of a sudden he got good late in the year, and he showed up in the Grand Prix at Yonkers and had a couple of nice wins. Now he's back in form again with it. You notice off that qualifier in March, on March 21st. Gets Lasix, Engblom. Obviously, he can take horses to another level, but I do think he's probably overbet in this race, and I'm curious to see what we get. Again, another horse that's coming off the bench, draws the rail, is probably going to take some heat early. Twisted Destiny, I think, is an interesting one. I do think that he excels over the small track. He got very good in the summer last year, if you recall. And then sort of maybe fell off form towards the end of the year. I do think the smaller track benefits him. The qualifiers look good for him also. Dexter Dunn back from his little hiatus. So he's going to be, I think, having this horse in the mix. He would be my preferred alternative to Redwood here.
My problem, though, is he's the most logical alternative. Redwood, the hardest he could get bet in this race is 1-9. I feel like that's pretty realistic. I Twisted Destiny, then I feel like he could be down to 5-2 because he's that logical of a second choice. Would you settle for a 5? Because I feel like even that price trying to beat Redwood Hanover is a little low for me, but maybe it's not for you.
I don't know. I mean, I think it's relative. Like I would have to be plugged in and watching the board here and kind of see how the board shapes up, because you mentioned Redwood could be 1-5, 1-9. Well, that creates value on all the horses, the rest of them, because really no horse should be that low, I don't think, especially these top horses. Redwood off the bench. I don't care how well he qualified. He still has to prove it here. First time, 6 years old. So I do think it's better to take prices, especially in these opening legs. So yes, Twisted Destiny, 5-2, 3-1. I would be a buyer there. And Travis Alexander's horse, I'm a perfect choice, is another one. He's going to be tested for class, but he made a fair amount of money last year. He's a closer in a race that could heat up. With the short field, he might not have too far to come. We'll see what the price is on him.
Well, and also how aggressively Matt Gakele will leave the gate with him. I had a hard time seeing how aggressively really anyone, aside from the inside horses, were going to leave. Bartlett's probably going to go. Dunn, I feel like he could go and then just take back. The race just really reads, especially being that short of a field, like it's in Redwood Hanover's hands. But I appreciate you not having as defeatist an attitude of me inside of that one. Third division is race number 4 on Monday, March the 30th at Yonkers Raceway. We're talking the MGM Borgata Pace opening preliminary. Again, 5 horses going postward here. Bartlett chose Hunting the Last Dollar over End of Story. Said to me in the interview, because I asked him, what weight should we really put into the choices you drivers make? And he said, well, at the end of the day, you're trying to preserve connections because he was driving, end of story. But he emphasized you're also trying to win the race. And obviously, Jason, first call guy for Per Engblom, seemed like a no-brainer. And Mike, just all last season, if you were looking for a horse that was going to scramble early, no matter the draw, Hunting the Last Dollar was the one that often made the pace murky. He gets a great draw here, but at a short price. Are you going to take him first time out?
I mean, he's a rocket ship away from the gate. I mean, he can really leave. If he wants the front, he can get the front in this race. I do think he's the quickest. He is another horse that likes to win, made plenty of money over this racetrack last year. But Verdun was very good. Remember last year, early in this series, he picked up some really nice checks, some nice wins. And now, he's been kind of clunking along in invitationals and picking up checks, but he draws inside here and he gets some horses that are all laid up that he gets to face. So he would be one that I would be interested in at a price. So I think Hunting the Last Dollar can beat this? Of course. He can certainly. And you have Sweet Beach Life returning. He's a nice horse also for Travis Alexander. He's one, though, I do think maybe this is a step up for him. He needs to kind of prove it here. But again, another Sweet Lou. So shout out to Diamond Creek there. These Sweet Lou's, I do think, get better with age. Let's see what this horse does coming back this year at 5 years old. The qualifiers look nice. He looks ready to roll. What's he going to do early? What do you think that he's going to be? Where is he going to be sitting in the race? Does he end up in the pocket? Because he could.
So off of 2 qualifiers, I feel like Kakali has the option to blast. Verdun doesn't have speed. End of story, can leave, but you make a good point. It could line up 2-4. I don't think Bartlett would relinquish the front, nor would anyone really outsprint him to the front. But at the same time, Sweet Beach Life, the money he's probably going to take here, I just don't know that I'd want to just settle on it being as chalky as 2-4. Honestly, I wish Catalpa Rescue got a better draw, but knowing Scott Zeron from a spot like this, I don't know. Am I wrong to think that he's going to be super patient with this horse? Because the horse can leave, but I lean that Scott sometimes drives these races a little more methodically than aggressively.
Well, I mean, that's the Scott style, right? He's always going to try to get a trip, and he finds ways to get trips in big races. Now, this horse, he tends to come late. He's 51-1 though on March 14th at Pocono, so he's in form. He's sharp. He's gotten 5 board finishes. He's second and third in 5 starts this year, so he's sort of an alternate to the top 2, right? But what kind of price are you going to get here? I mean, you getting 5-6-1 maybe? I don't know. That's the problem there. I would have to look at the board. If he's 10-1. Yeah, sign me up. If he's less than that, not that interested.
Yeah, my brain's having a hard time computing the 5-horse field specifically, because even if you have like a 3-5 shot, there's still plenty of room in the breakage to have like 2 5-2s, and then that makes your longest shot only like 7 or 8-1. I would think, at the lowest, the 5 would be like 8-1 inside of a spot like this. But at the same time, just the trip, I don't know is really going to work out. That's why I'm in agreement with you on Verdun is probably a solid underneath one. And the pylon post is probably the best for him. If you don't have that much gate speed, the only thing you just have to worry about is everyone out sprinting you to the first turn. 5-horse field, I don't think that's the case. I think at worst, Pat LaChance probably gets away third from the pylon post. And from there, he's most likely just going to kind of sit. Someone else is going to have to make the move. And Verdun might be the slight price to maybe get second. Maybe he can outsprint Sweet Beach Life since he has 4 starts under his belt and Sweet Beach Life is just making his debut. And plus, I mean, you look last year too, Sweet Beach Life sometimes was on and was able to sprint that final quarter and other times just couldn't. There was really no rhyme or reason as to why, or maybe there was if we talk to Travis Alexander at some point through the series. Mike, let's move on to the 4th division. It's race number 6 on the Monday card. Here we see defending champion Mosdale Ben, not even the morning line favorite in the series that he won. He's the 3rd choice here, tied for 3rd choice with Donegal Luther out of post 3 for trainer Jared Bako. Morning line favoritism goes towards Captain Albano from the pylon post. You remember me saying it a long time ago, back when he was 3. Small track is probably the place to be, for lack of a better term, for Captain Albano. He's back here in this series. He was runner-up in that Grand Prix Final 2 Coach's Corner. This horse's class is not in doubt. Single qualifier coming in, though. Do you wonder if he's primed to go?
Yeah, I'd wonder it for sure. Again, long series, long year. This horse has made 2.1 million. He doesn't have to prove anything to anyone. And the qualifier was just okay. And you could see, I'm sure that they have a long year planned. I mean, this horse was racing into December last year and doing very well in that Grand Prix. Ended up second in the final. He was 1-2 in there. He's a tricky read here. And this is a tough division, right? I mean, you have Which Way the Beach, you have Moscow Ben, you have Donegal Luther, who showed up and just missed an invitational on March the 23rd. So I would definitely be against Captain Albano. I would let him beat me. Moscow Ben, remember last year, he really revealed himself very early in this series. This horse can take a ton of air. He can make that big off-the-pace move. And now all of a sudden, he's kind of back in form, right? 2 wins out of the last 3 starts, getting primed up for this series. What did Jim Rohn say about him?
So Jim picked up this drive back in late December. I was trying to ask him, because the tricky thing, Jordan drove him. And so Jim doesn't have the familiarity of how this horse feels when he was at his best. But from what Jim has felt driving in, the invitationals and the other overnight races, he told me that he felt he's probably at 90%. Coming into this race. And obviously outside draw, I don't really know that any draw impacts him, because for the most part, he comes from off the pace. The testing point of this series this time around is going to be if he can make that late push again, because he's now 8 years old. He's shown glimpses that he can fire home with that same fervor. But you look back to, for instance, that race 3 starts ago, he did that in a 57-4 back half. And so if they're kind of soft up front, or even if they're going a mild tempo and they're still sprinting home, does Mossdale Ben still have that grit and tenacity to persevere through those types of moves? Same time, he was able to go pillar to post in the slop. Slow first quarter last time from that pylon post makes me wonder how much more gate speed he could possibly offer inside of a spot like this. But really, I'm in full agreement with you. It's tricky without the betting board to take a real stand, because aside from Captain Albano, it seems like any counterpunch you're going to take is most likely going to be on par with the other horse. It doesn't seem like there's going to be that much separation between the 4 principles, or the 3 other principles, I should say. The 2 and the 4 are definitely going to be long shots here.
Absolutely. And those 2 probably won't take any money whatsoever. And Which Way the Beach will be the clear third choice. He should be. He's very sharp. He's won 3 out of 4, and he's doing it, with difficult trips also. So, I mean, this one is right there. He could be the one that goes here too, right? I mean, if Captain Albano doesn't blast off the gate, Mazda Ben, we know he's not really leaving. He typically doesn't. So he typically comes from off the pace. So why not Which Way the Beach early, trying to control this race? Kaylee certainly very sharp away from the gate. And then you have the Donegal Luther factor also. Yannick shows up there with the start under the belt. Now, this one's 8 years old, but he's proven he seems to be fast enough to compete showing up here. So those would be the ones I'd be interested in, I think. I probably would try to be against the favorites here, probably use a little 3-5 in Maltese. And if you could beat Captain Albano, you can beat Moscow Ben. Well, you're looking at, I do think, inflated payoffs. You have a dollar pick 5 that starts in race number 5 with a guarantee. So these are multi-race bets where I'm trying to beat favorites. If I can do that, then I can gain equity in some of these races. And then, later on, if I end up with a favorite or something, no big deal, because you're eliminating a lot of tickets by using those 2 horses.
I'm thinking, at least from right now, the most intriguing prospect that I would probably say is my choice is the Baco trainee, Donegal Luther. Because remember, Baco he's kind of an underdog in many ways in this series, but he's trained a couple of horses that have been able to surprise, and his barn has only gotten better over the years that he's been stationed at Yonkers. You remember a little horse by the name of Hemsworth. He was a mainstay in the series. He was kind of a Sherlock type, except he was able to win some of the preliminaries too at times. So Baco picks up another old guy here in Donegal Luther. I want to correct myself on what I was talking about with Mosdale Ben at the very least before we move on. 2 starts ago, that's probably the mile that tells you he's closer to the Mosdale Ben of last year. Because if you look at how that race shaked out, 56-1 back half, he makes up 11 lengths. Do the math on that. That is 54-1, his back half.
When he's good, he can really take air and just, I mean, it's almost like he just never gets tired. So, and he's a really cool horse. I mean, he's really something special. He showed that last year. And when he's in form, that's the key.
Right. And so look at the board. I'd say if for whatever reason well, this is an interesting question before we move on. If he's ignored, do you read that as cold money or do you read that as an opportunity?
No, I don't know. I don't think he's going to be cold, right? I mean, he was 1-9 last time. When he finally won 3 starts back, he was 20-1. But this is a different game now. That he's going to get a lot of, I think, publicity leading up to the race. They're going to be talking about this horse. People aren't stupid. I mean, they remember how good he was in this series last year. So Captain O'Banner would take his money. I would say that Mosdale Ben probably second choice in here. But, if he's, ignored on the board, I wouldn't think it's an opportunity. I would think that it's a sign, a signal to maybe, wait a week or two.
Final division is race number 7. We got 6 horses going postward here. Jason Bartlett, in my conversation with him, I got him to lament on the fact that Coach's Corner. I couldn't figure. I didn't ask Jason, what he karmically had done wrong to cause Coach's Corner to have such terrible drawing luck, but he was saying the same thing to me of just, we're at least glad that this is a horse that does the work that he does and puts in the efforts that he does, because not many with that type of luck would be able to still make it on the Grand Circuit. And yet, even in a short field like this, Mike, he has the outside post again. I don't know that he's going to play to that 6-5 morning line, though. I feel like this is a race where the morning line is way off.
Yeah. What do you think? You think he's going to be higher here? What's your thoughts?
Well, I'm feeling like this Triton horse to the inside has to take a lot more money than 5-1. That's probably gonna level things out a little bit. Don't you think Chase H. Hanover is gonna be a bit more or a bit less than 6-1 here? Like,
I do think so for sure. Because he's another one that has excelled at the top level. He's got plenty of speed. It's Corey Stratton, a couple starts at Pocono to get ready for this. He likes this racetrack. He would be the one I want in this race because I think he's going to blast off. Coach's Corner coming off the bench. Yes, he's very fast. But, really, are they going to empty the tank? They're probably going to go from the back, I would think. Unless Jason had some other, thoughts on it. I just don't. This horse can win from off the pace. When he draws inside, he tends to blast off. But he won from the 9 post back in December in that Grand Prix final. Worked out a trip there. He can do it any which way you want to. I think coming off the bench, he's going to sit in this race. Whereas Chase H. Hanover, his chance to win the race is to blast off. He's going to blast. He's going to control the race. We'll see what this one is. He's got to prove it to all of us. So Chase H for me, maybe a little bit of Aruda from the inside and try to maybe take a stand against Coach's Corner. And if he wins, fine. He's supposed to win. But again, looking for prices, looking for opportunities.
Jason signaled to me that his strategy is an audible. He talked of other horses where it sounded like he had a better plan of I'm going to the front. With this one, it was tough to tell. And I even said to him that I feel like even if you told me that you were going to take back, you could still go to the front with this guy because he's that type of horse where he could just be feeling real sharp behind the gate. And he's handy enough where he can make that split second change and commit. So it was really tough to figure out which way Jason was leaning in terms of being more aggressive or more conservative. I'm leaning towards what you're saying. It seems like there is a bit more of a conservative mindset he has because it's start number 1 off of the bench and how the race drew. But I don't, even just in my analysis, I don't want to say that he's probably going to take back. I could see him even just floating out of there, making a first up push too in this race. But really the price is the main thing I have a qualm with. More likely than not, his low end is 4-5. His high end is, if he's 7-5, that's crazy.
I don't think a race like he'll be lower. I think he's sub even money in here just because his foes are unproven. especially the inside ones. They're not the same level as he is, at least so far. We'll see. I mean, this series, especially early, a lot of times we can get some upsets, and we've seen that the past several years, especially early in this series, that a horse sort of comes out of nowhere and starts the series off with a bang. So I'm interested to see who that is. We're going to get a few of those again with all these divisions.
And I know what I just said wasn't really consistent with what I said at the start with the morning line, but the main thing I'm watching for the moment the odds open is how hard is the one bet, because I'm just off of those qualifiers. The most recent one to Soho Firestone. A lot of things are pointing to me that this is a horse that I could see open 9-5 instead of 5-1. And so that also changes the whole betting picture of the race. And that also changes my interest in the race, because I really like how the one is coming into this race. The first qualifier is mild, was able to pick up great speed in the second one, and was actually gaining on the horse that won. When you have horses that are showing that interest to challenge, to press, and I know sometimes you can look at it the other way of, but they're not getting by. But this is a pretty popular qualifier pattern that I've noticed for a really long time of watching these races. And so I'm hard pressed to think the one isn't ready to go here, but the 5-1 made me way too excited, to the point where I'm doubting that that's actually the price he's going to be. And even like the 2, Captain Moore, being 7-2, we didn't even talk about him at all. Is he really going to take that type of action from the ad inside post?
Well, I mean, it's 4-5 in the invite on March 16th. It's Yannick. This one has been competitive. He has some recency over the others, and he has an inside post. So there's things to like. And if you like him, I do agree 7-2 is going to, that's too low. He's going to be higher than that. He's probably over 5-1 in here. The 1 will take more money than him. The 5 will take more money than him. The 6 certainly will. The 3, maybe. I'm not sure, because, that horse is a really nice horse also. The Howl in the Hills, I mean, has proven over this racetrack. Now, I know last year wasn't quite as good on the win end, but he's consistent. He comes from a top barn. He's got a couple qualifiers. Also, he'd be a horse I think you could use for exotics here, because he's going to be totally ignored. You figure most of the money is going to find the 1, the 5, and the 6.
And Howl in the Hills, at least when he's at his best, he does have that gate speed to get into position. But this race could also be a scramble off of the gate. Really, it all depends on what Jason does. And what's interesting is, because Chase H. Hanover is to his inside, you could almost presume the possibility that Anthony Blasting makes Jason go back. But Coach's Corner is the type of horse he can sprint tit for tat as well. So it almost makes moot that, because there's some times when we're trying to think of these races, if you can have a sense, these guys, when they see someone of their inside is really committing, that's when they decide to take back. And it happens more often than not.
Remember last year, very similar situation. It was Chase H. Hanover against Mostal Ben, and Chase H. was able to get the front, control the race, and he was able to beat Mostal Ben in one of the preliminary legs when Mostal Ben was 1-5, 1-9. So, I mean, I could see a very similar scenario shaping up here with Chase H. and with Coach's Corner. So don't sleep on him. He is legitimate. He's very fast, and he's third start back. This barn is no joke. So he's a horse that I want to see what price is on him, because he could be the bet of the entire day.
Well, a lot to learn here through this first leg of the series. It's a long series, 5 preliminaries, 5 weeks of action, all leading to finals. You said it's the week after I never remember. It's that Friday after Derby, right?
After the Derby, yes. Yeah.
That is May the
calendar for you, right?
Yes, please. Even though I could check it out at the same time, because I do. May the 8th.
Right, May the 8th.
That's when the finals of the Borgata and the mare race, the Ursula McIntyre, will go to post. So you'll see a lot more of Mikee P and myself through the coming weeks of this series, and hopefully we'll get to chat more with some of the major players in the series as their horses compete. We get to see where they're at, and what we could also learn about their performances for our handicapping purposes, as we try to make the best out of this, the only series like this. There aren't many opportunities where you get to keep such a keen eye on really good horses and try to pick up on all the little idiosyncrasies that could maybe be your edge that next week.
Yeah, it's this is really, like I said, this is some of the best racing. You see some of these horses coming back now, and they're ready to rock. There's big pots, right? You're going for 50,000 every week. The final is going to be loaded. That's going to be, very prime positions to get into that final. So these sorts are going to show up every week. They're going to get after it. It makes for great racing. So tune in Monday nights and get in on some of these pick threes, some of these doubles. Get in on Yonkers. It's going to be a lot of fun. I can't wait to talk about it, talk to some of the connections. It's going to be a fun series, and let's get it going.
First race post time at Yonkers Raceway on Mondays, or on Monday, March 30th. I guess Mondays in general, 6:45 p.m. Eastern. You can do the math for whatever other time zone you are in. Thanks, Mike, for talking with me about these races. And of course, I encourage you again, if you want to learn more about some of the people competing in this Borgata series, check out the companion episode we have. I interviewed Jim Marone Jr., Jason Bartlett, and trainer Doug DeLoyan Jr. That's available on the podcast front as well as on the video front here on the In the Money Media channel, on the In the Money Media YouTube channel, which you're hopefully subscribed to, because otherwise I don't know how you're going to catch the second preliminary preview, the third preliminary preview, the fourth preliminary preview, and the fifth preliminary preview, let alone, Mike, the finals. Got to be subscribed.
Live
subscribed.
We'll be live.
We'll be live.